In ancient Roman religion and myth, Janus is the god of beginnings, gates, transitions, time, doorways, passages, and endings. He is usually depicted as having two faces, since he looks to the future and to the past. It is conventionally thought that the month of January is named for Janus, but according to ancient Roman farmers' almanacs, Juno was the tutelary deity of the month. Janus presided over the beginning and ending of conflict, and hence war and peace. The doors of his temple were open in time of war, and closed to mark the peace. As a god of transitions, he had functions pertaining to birth and to journeys and exchange, and in his association with Portunus, a similar harbor and gateway god, he was concerned with traveling, trading and shipping. Janus had no flame and a specialized priest assigned to him, but the king of the sacred rites himself carried out his ceremonies. Janus had a ubiquitous presence in religious ceremonies throughout the year, and was richly invoked at the beginning of each one, regardless of the main deity honored on any particular occasion. The ancient Greeks had no equivalent to Janus, whom the Romans claimed as distinctively their own. Etymology. 3 etymologies were proposed by ancient erudites, each of them bearing implications about the nature of the god. The first one is based on the definition of chaos given by Paul the Deacon, hientem, be open, from which word Janus would derive by loss of the initial aspirate. In this etymology, the notion of chaos would define the primordial nature of the god. Another etymology proposed by Nigidius Figulus is related by Macrobius. Janus would be Apollo and Diana by the addition of AD for the sake of euphony. This explanation has been accepted by B. Cook and J. G. Fraser. It supports all the assimilations of Janus to the bright sky, the sun and the moon. It supposes a former *Dianus, formed on *Dia and LT *Dyth2 from Indo-European root *Daeshine, represented in Latin by dies day, Diorvis and Iapata. However, the form Dianus postulated by Nigidius is not attested. The interpretation of Janus as the god of beginnings and transitions is based on a third etymology indicated by Cicero, Ovid and Macrobius, which explains the name as Latin, deriving it from the verb ire. Modern scholars have conjectured that it derives from the Indo-European root meaning transitional movement. Janus would then be an action name expressing the idea of going, passing, formed on the root *yar and lt *yth to theme 2 of the root *ago, from which eo epsilon iota mu iota. Other modern scholars object to an Indo-European etymology either from Dianus or from root *yar. From Janus derived Ianu, and hence the English word janitor. Theology in functions. While the fundamental nature of Janus is debated, in most modern scholars' view the god's functions may be seen as being organized around a single principle, presiding over all beginnings and transitions, whether abstract or concrete, sacred or profane. Interpretations concerning the god's fundamental nature are either limited to this general function or emphasize a concrete or particular aspect of it, or else see in the god a sort of cosmological principle, interpreting him as a Uranic deity. Almost all of these modern explanations were originally formulated by the ancients. God of beginnings and passages. The functioned god of beginnings has been clearly expressed in numerous ancient sources, among them most notably Cicero, Ovid, and Varro. As a god of motion, Janus looks after passages, causes actions to start and presides over all beginnings. Since movement and change are interconnected, he has a double nature, symbolized in his two-headed image. He has under his tutelage the stepping in and out of the door of homes, the Ianu, which took its name from him, and not vice versa. Similarly, his tutelage extends to the covered passages named Iani and foremost close to the gates of the city, including the cultic gate of the Argoletum, named Dionysus Geminus Portorianulus, from which he protects Rome against the Sabines. He is also present at the Sororium Tigellum, where he guards the terminus of the ways into Rome from Latium. He has an altar, later a temple near the Porta Carmentilus, where the road leading to Veii ended, as well as being present on the Janiculum, a gateway from Rome out to Etruria. The connection of the notions of beginning, movement, transition, and thence time has been clearly expressed by Cicero. In general, Janus is at the origin of time as the guardian of the gates of heaven. Jupiter himself can move forth and back because of Janus's working. In one of his temples, probably that of Forum Holatorium, the hands of his statue were positioned to signify the number 355, later 365, symbolically expressing his mastership over time. He presides over the concrete and abstract beginnings of the world, such as religion and the gods themselves. He too holds the access to heaven and to other gods. This is the reason why men must invoke him first, regardless of the god they want to pray-applicate. He is the initiator of human life, of new historical ages, and financial enterprises. According to myth, he was the first to mint coins, and the first coin of the liberal series bears his effigy on one face. God of change and time. Janus frequently symbolized change and transitions, such as the progress of future to past, from one condition to another, from one vision to another, and young people's growth to adulthood. He represented time, because he could see into the past with one face and into the future with the other. Hence, Janus was worshipped at the beginnings of the harvest and planting times, as well as at marriages, deaths and other beginnings. He represented the middle ground between barbarism and civilization, rural and urban space, youth and adulthood. Having jurisdiction over beginnings, Janus had an intrinsic association with omens and auspices. Position in the pantheon. Leonhard Schmitz suggests that he was likely the most important god in the Roman archaic pantheon. He was often invoked together with Iapata. Structural peculiarity theory. In one of his works, G. Dumézil has postulated the existence of a structural difference in level between the Indo-European gods of beginning and ending and the other gods, who fall into a tripartite structure, reflecting the most ancient organization of society. So in IE religions there is an introducer god and a god of ending, a nurturer goddess and a genie of fire who show a sort of mutual solidarity. The concept of god of ending is defined in connection to the human referential i.e., the current situation of man in the universe, and not to endings as transitions, which are under the jurisdiction of the gods of beginning owing to the ambivalent nature of the concept. Thus the god of beginning is not structurally reducible to a sovereign god, nor the goddess of ending to any of the three categories onto which the goddesses are distributed. There is though a greater degree of fuzziness concerning the function and role of goddesses, which may have formed a pre-existing structure allowing the absorption of the local Mediterranean mother goddesses, nurturers and protectresses. As a consequence, the position of the gods of beginning would not be the issue of a diachronic process of debasement undergone by a supreme Uranic god, but rather a structural feature inherent to the theology. The fall of Uranic primordial gods into the condition of Deus Otiosis is a well-known phenomenon in the history of religions. Misha Eliade gave a positive evaluation of Dumézil's views and of the results in comparative research on Indo-European religions achieved in Tarpeia, even though he himself in many of his works observed and discussed the phenomenon of the fall of Uranic deities in numerous societies of ethnologic interest. The figure of the initial god may open the sacrifice, preside over the start of the voyage of the soul after death, stand at the opening of the drama of the moral history of the world. They may have a double moral connotation, perhaps due to the cosmic alternation of light and darkness, as is apparent in the case of Zoroastrianism. Solar god theory. According to Macrobius, who cites Nigidius, Figulus and Cicero, Janus and Juno are a pair of divinities, worshipped as Apollo of the sun and moon, whence Janus received sacrifices before all the others, because through him is apparent the way of access to the desired deity. A similar solar interpretation has been offered by Loudon, who interprets the god as the issue of a long process of development, starting with the Sumeric cultures, from the two solar pillars located on the eastern side of temples, each of them marking the direction of the rising sun at the dates of the two solstices, the southeastern corresponding to the winter and the northeastern to the summer solstice. These two pillars would be at the origin of the theology of the divine twins, one of whom is mortal and the other is immortal. Later these iconographic models evolved in the Middle East and Egypt into a single column representing two torsos and finally a single body with two heads looking at opposite directions. Numa, in his regulation of the Roman calendar, called the first month Januarius after Janus, according to tradition considered the highest divinity at the time. Temples. Numa built the endings.Janus, a passage richly opened at times of war and shut again when Roman arms rested. It formed a walled enclosure with gates at each end, situated between the old Roman Forum and that of Julius Caesar, which had been consecrated by Numa Pompilius himself. About the exact location and aspect of the temple there has been much debate among scholars. In wartime the gates of the Janus were opened, and in its interior sacrifices and vaticinia were held, to forecast the outcome of military deeds. The doors were closed only during peacetime, an extremely rare event. The function of the endings.Janus was supposed to be a sort of good omen. In time of peace it was said to close the walls within it to keep peace inside. In times of war it was said to be open to allow the return of the people on duty. A temple of Janus is said to have been consecrated by the consul Gaius Duilius in 260 BC after the Battle of Mylae in the Forum Holatorium. It contained a statue of the god with the right hand showing the number 300 and the left the number 65, i.e., the length in days of the solar year, and 12 altars, one for each month. The four-sided structure known as the Arch of Janus in the Forum Transitorium dates from the 1st century CE. According to common opinion it was built by the Emperor Domitian. However, American scholars L. Ross Taylor and L. Adams Holland, on the grounds of a passage of Statius, maintain that it was an earlier structure and that Domitian only surrounded it with his new forum. In fact, the building of the Forum Transitorium was completed and inaugurated by Nerva in 96 CE.